Nickel Boys is starting to expand into more and more theaters following a surprise inclusion in the Best Picture race this year. Is it worth seeking out, or should that surprise Best Picture nomination have never happened? Well, stick around and I will tell you my thoughts. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sean Morgan and I love movies. I really love Oscar nominated movies, or I should say that I love the process of trying to cover my bases and see everything that gets nominated each year. This year, Nickel Boys, directed by Ramel Ross, was nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. Much conversation followed, and the consensus from those that have seen the film, well, those people seem to think that it should have also been nominated for Best Cinematography. This is because the film is basically shot in the first person, putting you in the POV of Elwood or Turner, the two main characters. Depending on the scene, you are basically seeing everything from the perspective of either of these two young men. This is a bold choice that I will say outright ended up working in the film's favor and making it unique. When the film began, I was worried that the style would prove to be kind of irritating as time went on. However, I eventually got used to it. And as the story unfolded and got more layered, the film's cinematography felt more like it was, adding artistic value rather than just purely showing off a cool idea that the filmmakers had. The reason, though, that many were surprised at the Best Picture nomination is that not a lot of people have been able to see Nickel Boys. It's not uncommon for smaller, more quote unquote artsy movies like this to have small rollouts and then expand to other regions of the country depending on word of mouth or box office return. However, the distribution for Nickel Boys has been far too slow for many people's tastes. It did not, in my opinion, expand past New York City and Los Angeles in a timely fashion after garnering copious amounts of praise. I've seen, frankly, people floating around a pirated link of the movie on the internet, and while I do not condone pirating films, I sympathize with the frustration of somebody who lives in a more rural part of the country and is unable to access films like Nickel Boys or like other independent films that interest them as a cinephile due to this, constant insistence by Hollywood to hold out on expanding these kinds of movies to more people faster. Um, so if you are dying to see Nickel Boys to add it to your Oscars checklist, I would respectfully suggest that you wait for it to drop on Amazon Prime, not because I think you need to give Jeff Bezos more money or anything like that, but because I think the film deserves legitimate support from the public. Amazon owns both MGM and Orion, the production companies at the forefront of this film, so I have a hard time imagining that Amazon would not make this film, Nickel Boys, legally available via streaming before the actual ceremony at the Oscars this year. I digress, though. Nickel Boys is a film adaptation of the Pulitzer Prize winning novel by Colston Whitehead. The film tells the story of a friendship between two black boys attempting to navigate survival in a 1960s reform school. The film stars Ethan Harris and Brandon Wilson as Elwood and Turner, respectively. They are the two main boys that we follow throughout the runtime. The film also stars Anjanou Ellis Taylor as Hattie, Elwood's Nana. These three top billed actors, and everyone for that matter, do incredible work here with what is very difficult material and a very demanding style of filmmaking. The camera, due to the creative choice of the first person POV, is all up in these actors' faces. They really need to sell every micro expression, in order to make this first person POV commitment work, and every single person cast here is definitely up to the task. The film is interesting in that I experienced a unique sensation while watching that does not happen very often, or at least not to this degree. The more the movie got going, the more and more I actually liked it. Typically, even with movies that have multiple Oscar nominations, I'll be able to pick scenes that are standouts or peaks and valleys within the film itself as far as my personal enjoyment. Here with Nickel Boys, I truly just kept getting steadily more and more invested as the film continued. The line was straight upward the entire time without any question. And I think the reason for this is that there is an interesting series of cuts from the 1960s setting to sometime in the 1980s. I don't want to spoil the nature of these time jumps outright, since if you are not familiar with the book, then I believe it plays as a sort of surprise or reveal. I was not familiar with the book, so it was certainly a surprise to me as when I sat down to the theater. The movie unfolds its layers in such a way that is really moving and quite effective, in my opinion. As more and more of the 80s portion of the story begins to reveal itself, the weight of the already horrific and serious goings on in the 60s storyline just increases. Um, it also invites the audience to ask certain questions themselves as far as filling in the blanks within the story. For example, there are characters we meet in the 60s storyline that are called by name in the 80s storyline, but who don't quite match up vocally or visually if you're really, really paying attention. Most of the storyline in the 80s plays out from behind the characters so that you don't actually see their faces, but via their tonality and their skin pigmentation. uh, an astute audience member might wonder why certain older versions of characters don't quite seem to match those younger iterations we've met in the 1960s portion of the film. Is it a matter of colorblind casting, or is something um, more literal happening? The movie does not give you those answers right away. And this is not to say that the movie is some sort of twist factory and that, that's the reason to sit down and watch. This puzzle element is there, yes, but it is ultimately in service of the story and its themes regarding resilience and struggle and the unjust robbing of innocence of minority youths, or, disenfranchised youths of all stripes across the country. Those are just a handful of the ideas at play. Of course, you can imagine that a movie about this premise might raise quite a wide array of questions throughout the runtime. You know, anyways, where does Nickel Boys rank on my scale of A list, amazing, average, abysmal, or needs to be abolished? Well, I have probably given myself away here a little bit, but I think this is an amazing movie without a doubt. It's definitely like a 4 out of 5, and only time will tell if the film becomes an absolute, unquestionable classic. But I found it to be very effective and very moving. I was lightly tearing up by the end of the movie for sure, and I believe that you will too, unless you're somebody who lacks empathy or doesn't have a soul. And when I say that I was tearing up, I don't mean to say that this is a kind of tearjerker in any way. Like, I don't feel like it's manipulative. Sometimes you see a movie and you can tell it's trying to make you cry for all the wrong reasons just to like get a strong reaction. And here I think the sadness that ultimately did make me tear up and did make, I think, a few of the audience members that were there with me cry. I think that sadness is earned. Um, you know, this is a movie that I think, I'm obviously a white dude, so I can't speak to the level of respect that this maybe gives the material in question, but all of the creatives seem to be, to my knowledge, black people. So it seems to be being received as a pretty authentic representation of this story and this kind of perspective. So I am happy that it is getting that praise where it is due. I saw this movie as part of an experiment where I see as many movies as possible with AMC A List in a single year. I saved $9.69 with this ticket. Nice. This was kind of an early screening, so the ticket was not as expensive as it otherwise would have been. I think that amount of savings was totally worth it to see. Well, I mean, one of the Best Picture nominees that was on my list. I have no issues there. And this happens to be a Best Picture nominee that is also a good movie, which is always a good thing to be able to say. There are certainly Best Picture nominees that aren't great movies comparatively. I won't name names. But what did you think of Nickel Boys if you saw it? Did you see it? Is it even showing anywhere near you at the time that you're watching this? And if you pirated it, I will not pass judgment on you. I still want to know what you thought about it. Do you think it has a shot at Best Picture? I don't know that it has the juice, frankly, because between the fires and the kind of surprise nature of the nomination, I don't know that there's enough time to mount a sort of campaign that gets people voting in Nickel Boys' favor. It seems as though Emilia Perez is kind of unbeatable right now, and The Brutalist also has a lot of soldiers on the ground, as does something like A Complete Unknown. I feel like Nickel Boys will be a situation where the expectation will be congrats on the nomination. Maybe it will win adapted screenplay. That would be kind of nice. But Let me know your thoughts on any and all of that in the comments down below. Feel free to like this video or feel free to subscribe to the channel also to keep up to date with my thoughts on other movies as they roll out in cinemas. I'm going to try to cover other Oscar things as they come out into theaters. I've seen the majority of things, but the things that are on my list, for example, I'm Still Here, has not yet rolled out wide in cinemas. I would love to cover that. But until next time, stay safe, and I will hopefully see you soon on the next one. Bye.